It's not our job to determine whether the fruit is ripe or not. It's our job to tell folks about Jesus Christ. See, there's several observations I'd like us to notice regarding the harvest. The spiritual harvest. First observation I'd like us to see is that the harvest is ready. We don't need to wait until a certain time to tell people about Jesus Christ. The time is now. The time is now. Fruit is not all right. Not everybody that hears it will believe. Some fruit is green, some fruit is white that actually appears green. And some fruit will look spoiled, number 4, until it's picked. I'm sure if you would have asked anyone in town if the Samaritan woman was a likely candidate to believe in Jesus Christ, they all would have laughed at you. Especially if you would have talked to the ladies that drew water in the morning, who probably spent every day of their life talking about that lady. But in verses 17 and 18 of chapter 4, it says, "And the woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that sayest thou truly. The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet." And from there we know the story. She went into town and went around from person to person and told everybody she knew, "Come see the man that told me all things ever I did. Is this not Christ?" And the city turned out in multitudes. I'm sure anyone in the early church would have told you that Saul of Tarsus was a lost cause. In fact, they probably would have said, "Stay away from that guy. He'll kill you." Go with me to Acts chapter 9. Acts chapter 9, verses 1 to 15. Acts chapter 9, beginning in verse 1. Oh, I'm in the wrong book. Give me a second here. And Saul yet breathed out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus, to the synagogue, that if he found any of this way, that's what they called those who believed in Jesus, those are followers of the way, wherein there were men or women, that he might bring them bound into Jerusalem. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven, and he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. He trembled and astonished, said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? He said, Arise and go into the city, and be told thee what thou shalt do. Skip down to verse 10. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias, to whom said the Lord in the vision, Ananias, he said, Behold, I am here, Lord. He said, Arise and go into the city which is called Straight, and inquire at the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus, for behold, he prayeth. And hath seen a vision of the man named Ananias coming in, and put his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. And Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard many things of this man, how much evil he hath done to the saints in Jerusalem. And here he hath authority from the chief priests to bind all that call on thy name. But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and the kings and the children of Israel. Even with Ananias being told by the Lord, you got to go see Saul of Tarsus. What does he say? Lord, I think you made a mistake. I know this guy. I've heard his reputation. He's a dangerous fellow. I don't want to see him. I want to ignore him. If I see him going there, I want to go here. I want to stay away from this guy. But God said, I have a great plan for this man. He's come to me. See, some fruit looks spoiled until it's picked. I think a wonderful example of that. It's a thief on the cross. How much more spoiled could you get? This guy's hanging on the cross. He's on the cross because of his terrible life. They didn't put you on the cross for just, like taking some bubble gum from the local store. They put you on the cross for some bigger things. Now later on, there was, during the times of the Roman persecutions, they were hanging Christians on the cross for being a follower of the way. But at this point in time, that wasn't it. It was a pretty big deal to get on the cross. You had to work pretty hard to get there. And this guy had worked pretty hard to get there. He was a bad guy. He was. And even hanging on the cross, him and his other fellow were mocking Jesus Christ. Saying, get us both down from here. You think you're so good? You're so important and so wonderful. Get us off this cross. And finally, in the middle of when he's doing this, yes, it comes out of the conviction of the Holy Spirit. And he says to the other guy, stop it. We deserve to be here. He didn't do a thing. He did nothing. And he turns to Jesus and he said, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. He recognized, number one, who Jesus was and believed in him. And you know what? No work he did. Look for the work. Look for the baptism. Not there. No baptism, no work, nothing. He did nothing except believe in Jesus Christ. He said, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said to him, today, you're going to be with me in paradise. There's some real